Joining us here on the line, White House Press Secretary Jay Carney. Jay, it's Brian and Larry. How are you, Jay?
I'm very well. Good morning to you both.
Oh, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. An unnamed White House official is quoted as saying that tonight's speech the president will throw down the gauntlet. I guess my first question is, given that absolutely nothing will move legislatively without House conservatives being on board to some degree, why does the president think it's a good idea to go to the House and deliver a speech designed to antagonize rather than to offer compromise?
Well, I don't know who that alleged White House official is, but that's actually just not the case. The president, as you heard in his State of the Union, as you've heard in every major address he's given on the national stage dating back to his keynote at the 2004 Democratic Convention in Boston when he was only a candidate for the Senate, has been focused on the need for us to come together as a nation. If you remember back in that speech in 2004, he talked about the fact that we're not a red America or a blue America, we're the United States of America. And you heard in him the convention, in the inaugural address rather, just a few weeks ago, where he talked about the fact that, of course, we can't resolve all of our differences. There are real differences between the parties, but we are obligated, as the elected leaders sent to Washington by the American people, he said, to work together, to find solutions together and compromises together that move this country forward. That's the kind of tone you'll hear from the president tonight. So I'm not sure which article you're citing, but
Politico
it could not be more inaccurate.
Oh, that's good to hear. Jay, you know, a lot of people usually at the State of the Union, the president comes out with a laundry list of investments and things that they want to spend more money on. And I'm confused. You know, you said yesterday that the president, of course, believes that we have a spending problem. However, in a Wall Street Journal article, John Boehner said that during a discussion that the two of them were having, the president actually said to Speaker Boehner, no, we don't have a spending problem. So who's telling the truth here?
Well, first of all, there seems to be a desire here to shorten quotes. What the president said, allegedly, according to Speaker Boehner, but I don't disagree with it, is that our spending, we don't have a spending-only problem or a spending problem. We have a health care spending problem. Every economist worth the paper his PhD or her PhD is printed on will tell you that our deficit and debt long-term problems are driven by our health care costs, Medicare and Medicaid. And what this president has done with the Affordable Care Act is reduce those costs over time. Even the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, has scored it, if you will, the Affordable Care Act, to cut the deficit by more than $1 trillion in the second decade of implementation. That's not enough. That's why the president's put forward serious entitlement reforms to our programs. But what he won't do is voucherize the program in order to protect tax breaks for corporations and wealthy Americans, and then therefore just ask seniors to foot the bill for deficit. That's not balanced. So what you'll hear from the president is an absolute commitment to reduce the deficit further in a balanced way, which is how the American people want it to be done. Don't forget, since the summer of 2011, this president has signed into law $2.5 trillion in deficit reduction. That's more than halfway towards the $4 trillion goal. We can do more and we must do more, but we have to do it in a balanced way. We can't ask seniors or middle-class families trying to send their kids to school to bear the whole burden. It's just not right.
All right, and now if you were interviewing for an assistant press secretary down there at the White House and the candidate walked in and performed as badly in the interview as Chuck Hagel did at his confirmation hearings, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't get the job. So our question, and it's a sincere question, why should the American people accept a nominee for Secretary of Defense who does not demonstrate in the confirmation hearings a fundamental understanding of defense policy or military doctrine?
Well, that's preposterous. I can tell you're coming from a certain angle here. But the fact is, Chuck Hagel is a decorated veteran.
Did you see the answer on containment,
Hold on.
Jay?
He fought and bled for his country. He served his country in the United States Senate admirably. He did fine in the confirmation hearings. He will be an excellent Secretary of Defense. And there is a majority, easy majority in the Senate to confirm him, and we believe he'll be confirmed. The test of whether or not somebody's a successful cabinet secretary is not how he handles badgering questions necessarily in a Senate confirmation hearing. Here's what you ought to know, and what the American people and your listeners need to know about that confirmation hearing is we have 66,000 men and women in uniform in Afghanistan at war today. The senators in that hearing asked 3 or 4 times as many questions about Iraq, a war that's already ended because of this president, than the fact that we have those men and women in uniform in harm's way today. Now, why? Because they wanted to relitigate the Iraq war because they disagree with the fact of the positions that the Senator Hagel took on the Iraq War. That's history. We need to focus on the problems and the challenges that we have facing us today.
Well, one question, and you can clear this up for us, Jay Carney, and again, thanks for joining us this morning. It's a little bit of history. It's only a few months ago. There have been these conflicting reports about what happened in the White House the night of September 11th when our consulate was attacked in Benghazi. And there were initial reports that the president was watching from the Situation Room and actually saw what had happened. Leon Panetta, of course, in his testimony said that there really wasn't a whole lot of interaction at all with the Secretary of Defense between he and the president. And he didn't know where the president was. Can you clear it up? Where was the president in the White House, and what was he doing?
You've got to expand your reading material. First of all, the President of the United States was in a meeting with the Secretary of Defense, Leon Panetta, and with the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Marty Dempsey, in the Oval Office when his National Security Advisor walked in and told him of the initial reports of an attack on our diplomatic facility in Benghazi. He immediately ordered the Secretary of Defense, he immediately ordered the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs to take every action necessary to move forces and other material to try to assist those who were